Archery hunters, listen up. If you find yourself in the heart of King County, do yourself a favor and stop in at Rock Creek Archery, located in Tukwila. They have everything you need if you're just beginning to the sport or you've been shooting for 20 years, even an indoor shooting range. Or check them out at rockcreekarchery.com.
This section of the broadcast is brought to you by Burpaw, burpaw.com.
Use Ridge15 at checkout to receive a sweet discount.
Hey everybody, if you are looking for a game call that is elk, turkey, deer, predator calls, waterfowl calls, we highly recommend PhillipsGameCalls.com. Professional grade game calls made for every hunter.
Welcome back to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, with your hosts, David Crane and David Sandana.
All right, Dave. It's all new now.
Got my nerves all rattled. I had to hold my hands together just to stop from shaking, man.
Yeah, we have a very special guest that we're having on the show. We are at the Washington Sportsman Show here in Puyallup, Washington. And, yeah. Who's the guest? Who do we got?
Today we're having on this third seat here is going to be filled by none other than Randy Newberg, hunter.
That's right.
Defined both ways. So when you look up hunter, you look up Randy Newberg, it defines a hunter. When you look up hunter, it just says see Randy Newberg.
Yeah. We're super excited. We're super nervous as well. This is a big deal for us. This is going to be a lot of fun. And we're about 10 minutes away from having Randy here with us on the podcast. So
it's going to be good.
Yeah, so we're going to take a little break, and we will be back with Randy Newberg.
Yep.
Man, look at this. You guys are all set up. Cameras and everything.
Just like our little spot.
Pressure's on now. I got to behave myself.
Pressure's on you. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, everybody. Our special guest today is the legend himself, Randy Newberg.
Wow, that's a stretch of that definition, but if you want to go with that, we'll do it today.
You're in my book.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, I walked by your booth the other day, and you guys are sitting there selling books and nothing else. I'm like, what are you guys up to?
Yeah.
We're trying to
doing the podcast and YouTube and, just trying to make a splash in the outdoors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I can help in some way. Because you guys aren't as old and gray as I am. So, we need people to come behind me and, be the voice. So.
We were actually just talking about that at breakfast today, about a half hour ago.
Oh, really?
So, I was leaving the house this morning, and I was thinking about, I'm in the construction industry, and the big deal is like a gap in current tradesmen and future tradesmen.
Okay.
And I was thinking about the backfilling of industries,
Yep.
And I was thinking about that since last night. So I was leaving, I was thinking about that, and you just brought it up first thing. It's kind of...
Well, a lot of people ask me, they're like, why do you do all this? Why do you give information? Why do you reach out to people you don't know? Like, David, when you and I talked the other day, I'm like, well, I'll be on your podcast. And you kind of looked at me like, for real? But for me, this is all about something way bigger than I am. People who came before me did a ton for conservation, for hunting, for habitat, for everything else. And it's not like they said, oh, I'm just doing this for myself. They were doing it for that next generation and that next generation. And when you get to a certain age, you start seeing that. And my daily life is like, all right, how do I make it better for whoever might come after? Because I've been blessed that I want to still hunt more, but I always say if I never get to hunt again, I've probably got to do more than my share. So what am I doing that's giving back? So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is really cool. And actually, with the giving back, I wanted to talk to you about the new classes that you were actually starting up.
yeah.
And where people can find those classes, the teachers that are in those classes. So, Randy, if you'd like to talk about that,
Yeah.
I think it'd be very interesting
this is-
for people to jump in on that.
Yeah, this is another one where you get a lot of grief sometimes. People are like, why are you giving all this information? And so some people are familiar with Corey Jacobson's University of Elk Hunting course. He owns Elk 101. And
Yes.
so that was very successful. And a bunch of us were talking about, we need to get more information out there so that we got people who they've really been working hard to try get to a certain level, but they may not have mentors. They may not come from a hunting family. They, a multitude of things are in your hand.
Me too, yeah.
So how do we get some of this information to them? So we started this thing called Outdoor Class. And right now there's Corey's University of Elk Hunting is there. I did a rifle elk hunting class. Corey did an instructional class on calling. Remy Warren did a mule deer class. Hank Shaw did venison. Jamie Teagan did cooking, another wild game cooking one. John Barclow's done. Yeah, I call it how to not get in trouble when you're alone out in the woods, but it's a much more concise course than that. And each of these courses are about 15 videos long. And so the idea is giving people information, right? We used to get it sometimes through, I call it osmosis, right? Or like in my case, my dad, my uncles, my grandparents. But a lot of that isn't there anymore. We're so removed, families, you get out of high school and you move off. And so you lose some of that network where that mentoring used to happen. And so that's, you go to outdoorclass.com and see if it works for you. I think this year our slate, I just looked at it the other day. We've got 8 courses that are going to get published this year, and then 8 or 10 more next year. And so, hopefully, people find it useful.
No, I was looking at it actually, and I'm going to do it. I'm not thinking about it. I'm going to do it. It's $100 for the year.
Yeah. But I can save you $20.
Well, there you go. I'm definitely in now. I'm signing up.
You know how I am. Everything with promo code Randy, you better save money because I have a motto: don't pay full retail.
Perfect. I like that.
In my other life, I'm a CPA.
Yeah.
So CPAs are notorious for being a little bit frugal. I have a motto: don't pay full retail. So I tell all of my partners in all of our platforms, hey, I need a promo code for my audience because they're not going to pay full retail.
Yeah.
So then when I start my own platforms, it's like, I better have my own. I better give a promo code and discounts to my own things. So.
Awesome.
So what's nice about this course is that it's not just elk.
No, it's
There's a bunch of different game animals on there that you're going to learn about and stretch your knowledge.
Yep. Remy is kind of our mule deer guy. I just finished my pronghorn course that's going to get published later this month, later in February. And then we've got turkeys coming, whitetails, and a whole lot of
So it's
things.
going to have the whole gambit of just hunting North America animals?
Yeah, and then it's going to have a lot about food care and meat care out in the field, Corey's University course has a lot of that. But we're going to be filming some professional meat processors. So we'll have all that. Because those are big challenges that those of us who hunt kind of take for granted, right? Oh, well, everybody knows how to quarter out now, can pack it out. No, that's a pretty daunting thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you've never done it yourself, or in some cases, you've never even seen it done.
Yeah.
It's like, uh-oh.
I got a video of Dave packing out his bull.
Yeah?
Quartering it up. That was fun.
Here in Washington?
Yep.
Yeah.
Roosevelt.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm jealous.
Now, have you hunted Western Washington?
Never have.
Have you ever wanted to?
Oh, I've always wanted to hunt Roosevelts, but then I drive around here and I look at how thick and nasty it is. It's like, maybe I don't want to do this. I don't know how you guys do it, quite honestly. Because
Luck.
where I hunt mostly is Rocky Mountain elk, and it's a lot of glassing.
Yeah.
The country's really open, and then you come here, and I don't know, if you had claustrophobia, how would you hunt here? It's
We call it getting good at the 5-yard shot.
Master of the 5-yard shot.
Yeah,
for sure.
I have a bunch of videos on YouTube of someone that I'm mentoring in archery, and he's shooting very, very close shots.
Yeah.
And I have people commenting, "Why do you practice so close?"
yeah,
And I was like, if I was just to turn to the side and take a picture of what we actually hunt in, because like where we're archery shooting, it's thick and nasty.
Yeah.
And there's briar bushes and sticker bushes and blackberry bushes and all this stuff everywhere.
yeah,
I was like, if I was just to take a shot of what we hunt in, you would know why we practice these really close shots, because sometimes it's not the top pin. You need to figure out where that, if you're like that 30 or 45 area where your pin
Yeah.
needs to be for that close, like you use a top pin, you might be up too high in the shoulder or something.
Yeah.
Even though it's a large target, all your pins are hitting it, but
Yeah.
you have to master the 5-yard shot.
It can happen.
I'll work on that if I come out here. No, I'd love to do it. I'm fascinated by hunting different landscapes. It's always been part of the intrigue of hunting for me. Hunting has always been about food to start with, but then you're if you're lucky, like I've been and blessed, you get to go and explore new places. And to me, the hunting cultures and the landscapes just fascinate me. Last week I was in Mississippi. I've never been to Mississippi, and I've never hunted rabbits behind beagles, but I got an invitation to do that. I'm like, I want to go see what this culture is all about. Fascinating. Absolutely amazing. And so coming out here, when I see I was just over in the other exhibit hall here looking at all those Roosevelt bulls in that measuring, that.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
Northwest Record Book or whatever. I'm looking at all those and the crazy crowning and formations of these Roosevelt antlers. I'm like, man, there's got to be something here that really is doing something cool with these elk, and I'd like to figure it out. But unfortunately, it's never got on my calendar yet. But
The bodies on those elk would amaze you more than the antlers.
that's what everybody tells me, that the Rosies are significantly larger than a Rocky Mountain bull.
Yeah, so the Rocky Mountains will have the really nice whale tails to the back and all that stuff, but it's more or less like the body on the Roosevelt. So, if you're out hunting for meat,
Yeah.
you're going to get a lot of it, which that's all I'm about. I'm about filling tags. At my point in my career, whatever's legal is going in the freezer.
Sounds like we'd get along real good.
I'm ready for wide open and smaller bodied elk. I'm over the thick, I'm like, great, man. I'll take one every 2 years versus one every 8 years. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It is very difficult. Yeah. So for the normal, I would say weekend warrior hunter or extended weekend hunter,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much our target.
Right.
You're very lucky if you can see elk every year, not just get a play on one. So the harvest rates are anywhere in that 6 to 8 year range, like every 6 to 8 years. So it's almost like pulling a lottery tag, like yes,
Yeah.
when you finally get one on the ground. So hunting over here is very difficult, and we've really been thinking about trying to get different tags in different states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We should have thought about that 10 years ago.
Well, that's a whole nother subject. I lucked out where if there's one good thing about being old and not being able to pack a big Roosevelt off the mountain, it's that you probably did start this process back when it was a lot easier to draw tags. And most people thought I was crazy in 1995 when I started applying in all these western states. And maybe I was crazy. I'd have a lot more money in the bank if I didn't have such a hunting addiction.
Yeah.
But I got to do a lot of things and see a lot of things. So, it's been fun doing that. And I could see where if you hunted here, there would be an interest in going to other places, not because the hunting here isn't intriguing. It's just you'd want to go, if the success rates are that low, okay, I want to go somewhere where I might put elk in my freezer more often.
Yeah.
Well, there's people that get them, every year. They found the honey hole. They found their spot, It's difficult, like you're spending the year out in the woods looking for where these elk are and where the pockets are and all this other stuff. So,
Yeah.
a lot of scouting, a lot of scouting. I love doing it too, but sometimes when it comes to that hunting season, all of a sudden now you have a fire that pushed everything out, or the area that you were going to hunt is now closed. So I know a lot of hunters deal with that, all over the western states. And it gets difficult, but man, it drives you every single year to come back. There is nothing like hunting elk in really western Washington, and I think anywhere where you have elk.
Yeah.
People just come back every year.
So
It's
what's
nice.
the deal? I hear the term Cascade Roosevelt, and then I hear the term Roosevelt. Is it like
From what I understand, the biology of the Roosevelt elk, they have a textbook definition,
right?
and it has something to do with I-5. So
Oh,
west
so
of
what
I-5
is a true Roosevelt.
is a true Roosevelt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
then-
we hunt just east of I-5, but those are just miles from, those are the same elk as between the coast and I-5.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just a logistical thing.
Okay. And so some of these, the rationale is that some of the Rockies from the east slope might be mixing.
Interbreeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So there are some, I'd hate to say a town where the people hunt these elk, but there's a town close to here where they have these monster bulls, and they're considered Roosevelts, but they're definitely Rocky Mountain style.
Oh, really?
You're like
Okay.
the Roosevelt body with a Rocky Mountain rack. They're
Yeah,
huge.
so it's just monstrous. So you're just
Yeah.
like, what was that?
Yeah.
A buddy of mine, he has a spot where he's taken 3 bulls out muzzle loading, and you see these things, you're just like, Jesus, can't even believe how big that sucker is.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't his what? Are you talking about the one his wife ended up getting like a 9 by something?
Maybe.
They were here a couple years ago, and he was carrying a rack
Oh,
around,
yeah.
and they had like some gnarly stuff in the back, and we're just.
Everybody was stopping and staring.
I was like, is that a red stag? Like, what is that?
it was close.
It's funny, and this is just because I don't live here. I always think of Washington, in addition to Roosevelt's, I think about blacktails, and I think about your waterfowl hunting. And when I think of hunting Washington, that's what I think about.
Yeah.
All great things.
We have some epic waterfowl hunting here.
Yeah.
For a western state. My family, part of it's from the south, so they have a lot of waterfowl down there, ducks and stuff. But this year, my buddy has some private land leases. They're like farmlands,
Yeah.
so they do like a lease. And he invited me on a couple hunts, and we had just record days. I mean,
Yeah.
2-hour limits and 5 guys, and they're flying and landing in the dark in the spread.
Yeah.
Like, how these things see at nighttime? I mean, they're literally landing on the ground at night, and
Yeah.
it's amazing where it's come from. But we had some weather this year, which was unseasonably kind of warm, extended warm time.
Okay.
And then it got pretty dang cold. So it was like in the teens here for a
Yeah.
little bit, and that really pushed a lot of the waterfowl south. And then
Okay.
it warmed up into the 30s, and then they stayed here.
Yeah.
So they were like residents for about 2 weeks. It was crazy.
Yeah. So when you say it pushed them south, California?
Pushed them from Canada south.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And
or
then-
from Skagit Valley.
All right. Okay. So they'll stay here for a long time? Or
They winter. So the geese. I'm not a biologist, but from my experience, there's an island between Oregon and Washington in the Columbia River.
Yeah.
There's a refuge there.
Yep.
You can hunt there in Longview's a refuge. They're well known, and the geese will actually winter at that point.
Okay.
So there's some certain identification classes you have to take through the Department of Fish and Wildlife, so you don't shoot the dusky geese.
Yeah.
because
which
they're
are-
very limited.
Yeah. Endangered.
Endangered species, and then you can harvest 1 per hunter.
Okay.
But if you take 2, or if the area quota's out, they shut that whole area down to all geese, so you can't even hunt there anymore.
Wow.
So it's important that people don't shoot the wrong ones. But yeah, they'll winter here because
Okay.
it's usually in the low 40s all winter.
Yeah.
It's not freezing. We'll get a couple cold spells, but we get a good amount of animals that winter here.
Yeah. Well, when I went to the airport in Bozeman, when I flew over here Thursday morning, it was 5 degrees and we had about 30 inches of snow on the ground. So it's tough for a goose to make a living in that kind of weather.
Yeah, that is very cold. Jeez.
Yeah,
That is insane.
yeah.
But,
Tougher construction guys too.
yeah. Well, they're still out there working. And that's when you drive by and say, you got a great outdoor job in the summer, but no thanks.
Yeah, I'm an indoor guy. Yeah.
But for me, coming to a place like Washington, and then in a couple weeks I'll do the show in Portland, and then I'll do one in March in Bend, and I travel around, do a lot of these, and for me, I just love interacting with the people. You saw me walking around the other day, just, hey, how you doing? And I'm there mostly to try and absorb what the hunting culture is for that area, because I find that so intriguing, and there's always a history to it. There's some, always some conflict ongoing about landscapes or resource allocation and stuff. And so I try to stay up to date on that. But I think at least my experience has been, if you talk to somebody who hunts, it's like immediately there's a connection there. Some way, shape, or form. And if I said, hey, I need a ride to the airport, they're like, oh, you hunt? Yeah, okay, I'll give you a ride to the airport. You don't hunt? No, call Uber.
Yeah,
get a
right,
taxi.
That's funny.
Yeah, get the airport shuttle, get you.
Yeah, so coming here with the landscape being so different and the species being so different, it's really, really interesting for me.
Yeah, Washington's crazy. Because, I mean, if you just go east, it's going to look like some of your other western states. I mean, Idaho.
Yeah.
It kind of gets flat too. Towards far east side, it gets pretty flat, and there's desert. But the hunting opportunities are a lot different. So like the whole state's not open for elk.
Yeah.
So we have Rockies too.
Right.
But you need to draw a tag to hunt them,
Yeah.
or at least big ones. We can hunt spikes.
True
Okay.
spikes in some areas.
So
Yeah. So
if you are a Washington resident, so I'm trying to put, this is me thinking how spoiled I am in Montana, right? Most of our state is over the counter for residents to just go buy their deer or elk tag. And then we get 6 weeks of archery season on that same tag. Then we give them a 5-day break, and then we get 5 weeks of rifle season on that same tag, and then they get a 5-day break, and then we could do 10 days of muzzleloader on that same tag.
on one tag,
Well, same tag.
Wow.
And so when you're talking about
it's time to move.
no, Montana's full.
He's like,
No.
stay over there.
That's what we've been saying.
Yeah. But, so you're saying here in Washington, can you even get an over-the-counter elk tag, or is everything draw?
It's over.
It's over the counter.
Okay. And
Yeah.
when it's over the counter, you said you can only shoot spikes?
If you
No.
hunt the east side,
Okay. If you hunt the west side?
So the state is divided by east and west for elk.
Yep. Okay.
And so if you decide you're going to hunt west side elk, you have to declare that and the weapon you're going to use. That's your tag.
So you got to select, I'm doing rifle, or I'm doing archery, or I'm doing
Muzzleloader.
You can't
Yep.
hop.
Nope.
nope.
Oh, okay.
It's you're locked, and then you're also locked on what side of the state you're hunting.
Well,
So that's micromanagement.
Yeah.
Micro game management.
well, all you Montana folks listening, don't be complaining about anything.
Exactly. You got a really nice setup going.
Well, it wasn't always this way here.
No, it
you know?
wasn't. No.
So I would say still complain to stop it from becoming this.
Yeah.
And they do have now, they introduced these multi-season tags.
Okay.
So if you put in a permit or drawing for a permit, I think it's $6 or $12. You can draw either a deer or an elk multi-season permit, and you
Okay.
can hunt both sides of the state,
Any weapon.
any weapon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But you have to follow the general season rules.
For that.
For that
area,
location,
Whatever
yeah.
place you're hunting. Huh.
So aside from the general season rules, on the east side you can get a bull tag, which is any bull,
Okay.
and they have giant ones over there. But under the multi-season, you can only hunt like a true spike or a cow tag,
Okay.
whatever that says for unit 325.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there is some
So-
extended opportunity.
Is there a lot of demand, I would suspect, for those few limited entry tags then? Like
There-
the any bull tag on the east side, is that hard to draw?
It's
Oh,
hard.
yeah.
It's pretty hard to draw. Yeah, you got to be. I mean, you can draw on 2 points, but I'm thinking 17 points is you're gonna be good.
Okay.
You're gonna start getting closer to drawing. But I know people that have drawn off 2 or 3 points, so it's pretty
Right.
much a lottery. I mean, it just
I'm not
happens.
even sure how it works.
Like I know a guy that just drew down in Arizona off 2 points.
Yeah.
I don't know what unit he's going after, but I mean,
Clean
I was like,
living.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, whoa,
My
2
buddy,
points.
my buddy's wife drew a moose tag with her first application, 1 point,
Here in
Washington.
And it's
Wow.
once in a lifetime.
and she
Yeah.
drew mountain
For
goat. And she
Man.
drew mountain goat. Yeah.
She related to the governor or something?
No, but her husband's a CPA.
Well, that's what I do for a lot of people ask.
Seems like that's working out.
Yeah. Randy, how do I get your job? Like, have a really good day job.
I was thinking about your job as a CPA and how that peak season is different than the tax season.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
My wife has said many times, you wouldn't have become a CPA if tax season was in the fall, would you? I'm like, well, no. Why didn't
There's a strategy behind it.
yeah. Starting about December 1st, it gets really busy with year-end planning, and then you got 3.5 months till April 15th where it's just crazy. You're working 80 to 100 hours a week, and then you fish, and then you hunt.
Yeah.
And then you start it all over again on December 1st. So anyone listening who's wondering how you get a really good hunting career, go be a tax accountant.
Yeah, and get all your people filed before the extension time. That's good, too.
That's the other part. You could ask any of my clients. You don't get extensions if you want to be Randy's client. They would, they kind of thought I was joking for a while. And they'd be like, oh, I got to extend this. I'm like, all right, antelope season starts August 15th. I'm gone. And they'd be dragging their feet, and they wouldn't get their stuff in until the deadline for individuals was always October 15th. And they'd show up about October 1st, and, my partners would be like, well, he's gone. He ain't coming back till, Thanksgiving. They'd be calling me like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I told you. So,
my calendar's full.
You got to have priorities, man. Make those boundaries and stick to it.
Yeah, and I didn't end up with a lot of extended tax returns because of that.
That's awesome.
I guess that's probably a reflection of my priorities in life. My family and friends always come first to everything, but I think the reason I've been able to live a very blessed outdoor life is I've made it a priority. I've made a lot of financial sacrifices to be able to do that. And so if that's what you kind of planned your life around and saved your money for, well, you better be able to do it then, because you're really making an effort to make that a reality. So
Yeah.
I read a book, Extreme Ownership.
Yep.
In what you just said, I feel like it's unconsciously the reverse, to where you put such a high priority on everything else, you were able to do the things you wanted to.
Yep.
And so, prioritizing everything we're doing each day in our professional life, our family lives, is going to lend you the time you need to do the things you want to do. Because, just as responsible adults and parents, right, we're not just going to abandon our children on hunting season 6. Sorry, can't help you.
Yep.
We got everything pre-planned and ready to go. And
Yep, and that book and a lot of other books, they talk about what is true freedom. And to me, I realized in my CPA life, seeing hundreds of clients in different financial perspectives, that one version of true freedom is to not be in debt, to have your financial life in order, so that you then own your time, or at least whatever time when you're not working. And so that was kind of the guiding principle for me, is, interest never sleeps, debt never goes to bed.
That is very true.
And for a long time, I drove old junked out vehicles. I lived in a very small house. I didn't have a cell phone for the longest time. And people would probably be like, well, I don't want to live like that. That's not the daily life I want to have. And I get that. The decisions my wife and I have made financially probably aren't for everybody, but they were for us, because she loves to fish. So here's the other condition of my marriage: I got to fish 40 days a year in the summer.
Shame on you.
Just to stay married. And,
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, she's so fanatic about fishing. But we realized, when we moved to Montana, we were living in Carson City, Nevada, and we took very large pay cuts to move to Montana. But we said, no, easier to do that when you're in your mid-20s than your mid-30s or mid-40s or mid-50s. And then once you kind of bottom out on the income level, you find you can still build a lifestyle on that. So then as your income increases, it's like, okay, I don't need to increase my frivolous spending. I'll just, use that for other things. So it's... For me, it truly is a feeling of freedom to say, all right, it's my time, it's my life. I'm going to do with it what I want and not be beholden.
I'm kind of jealous of the cell phone thing. because I don't have an office.
Yeah.
Like, you have an office,
Right.
and people come to you and call your office. I don't know if you had a receptionist to that, but
Oh, yeah.
when you're off in the woods and you're enjoying your fishing, having that thing ring, I don't have an office, so everybody reaches me in the field, and
Yeah.
it's like that little anchor is awfully disruptive.
Yeah. And I didn't have a cell phone for a long time. And one time I came back, I still remember I came back from a hunt in New Mexico, and I walk into my office, and my partners have a brand new cell phone on my desk. You are going to start using that. Because part of the reason I loved getting away from the world was exactly what you mentioned. I just resisted the whole cell phone thing. It's the reason I probably don't know how to do Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
Well, because it like gets you away from everything, right? And
Yeah.
this is like your solitude time, like reflection and focused on, the task at hand.
Yeah,
If
and
it's
like
fishing
you-
or hunting or whatever it may be in the outdoors.
Yeah, and like you were saying, Dave, it's kind of like a tether, right? You can only get so far away, and here it is. And so there's times even now, if you're listening to this and I haven't replied to your email or your voicemail, I just, yeah, you know what? I turn it off when I'm out in the field. I'm on airplane mode most of the time, other than I turn it on to call my wife every night. Hey, honey, I'm still alive. See, talk to you tomorrow.
That's exactly what I do.
And
Yep.
so I know some people get frustrated with that, but I just, that's life. That's my life anyhow. I'm not gonna cater. I don't want to say cater. I'm not gonna build my life around the expectations of others. Kind of like the ownership thing. Yeah, you own your own life. So
And you put so much in throughout the year that, why should they expect you to do that?
Yeah.
And I get it. It's hard when in business, on the business side,
Right.
to just be like, I'm not going to answer the phone. But
Right.
people should respect the boundary. That your work doesn't call you at your house and say, we need you to check this, document, unless you're on the clock.
Yep.
And as a self-employed person, it's more difficult to have that stance, but it's important to build boundaries and do that. And, I'm going to, just off talking to you for this last half hour, I'm going to start implementing some of these things because I have it's difficult for me as a self-employed person.
I think it is, and successful self-employed people, and I've been self-employed since I started a contraband fireworks stand when I was 10. But I've been self-employed since I was about 8.
Here comes ATF.
Yeah, don't be. This is the statute of limitations. That was back when I was a kid. But anyhow, self-employed people, I think, have a tendency to want to be pleased places where it's like, why did I tell this person I do that? Why, and I'm sure you have. Why did I take their phone call? Dang it!
Yeah. Then you worry about
I-
that the whole time. You're
Right.
like, oh man, I got to go to the office. I've done that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I'm done right now. I'm declaring in front of Randy Newberg. I'm done going back from the field. If I hit the woods and I'm bringing my stuff, you will not hear from me.
yeah, I just think it's healthy. I mean, when I come back from a hunt, man, I'm recharged. I'm mentally okay. Yeah, I got a big stack of emails and I got a big bunch of voicemails and stuff to get to, but all right, I went and did my thing, and now I'm ready to go.
Awesome.
So
Well, I wanted to touch on your public land
yeah,
contributions. I think here in Washington, the success rate is dependent a lot about our access.
Yep.
And we have a pay system in a lot of the private land held companies.
Yep.
They've started taking money for access. And when I started hunting there, it was you could just
Free.
drive in. Yeah.
Yep.
And over the last 20 years, it's just become more and more restricted. It went to walk-in, then it went to weekend access only, then now it's permitted.
Yep.
And a lot of people, they won't do it. And I don't blame them. I've hunted the public lands, the Gifford Pinchot, extensively for most of my childhood, and then the southern Gifford Pinchot towards Mount Adams as an adult. Both great areas to hunt. There's a lot of other things going on there, and if you can get away, you have good opportunity. But I know you're a public land advocate, and so before we wrap up, I want you to kind of
Yeah.
give us a nutshell on that.
Yeah, well, for me, I grew up in a little logging town of 500 people, probably not too different than some of the places in Washington or Oregon, and everybody hunted. And I was the oldest of 3. My parents divorced when I was 10 or 11, and my dad was kind of out of the picture. He moved out west to try make some money. So right when I was going to become a hunter, it's like, oh, my number one mentor is kind of gone. But to my benefit, I had public land within a half mile of our trailer house. I'd get off the school bus, I'd walk down and grab my 22 or grab my 410, and I'd go walk the trail along the river and shoot grouse, shoot rabbits, whatever. And that's where I realized how important public land is, that not everybody has private land. There's a majority of Americans don't have a place to go, and as you were saying, access is getting harder and harder and harder. And so even though the public land gets crowded because we got more people not just hunting but doing all kinds of things out there, it still is the critical piece of access for people who can't afford either to buy private land, lease private land, pay these other fees that you're talking about. And so I just know without public land, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. So I've just been an advocate for it my entire life. And when they put me in the pine box, I'll probably, wherever I end up after that, I'll be advocating for public lands probably. So,
yeah, put it on my tombstone.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean, it's very important. I mean, if you take away all the private land and, the government buys it up and sells it to whatever outfit or whatever, then, that goes our free hunting lands.
Yeah.
And,
we're seeing the trend you guys have probably seen in the last 20 years. It's starting in Montana. Did Plum Creek Timber ever own lands here in Washington?
I've never heard of them.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well,
our biggest one
like
is Weyerhaeuser.
Yeah, they're like Weyerhaeuser. So they own most of the private timberlands in Montana. And those came from the railroad grants back in the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
The Northern Pacific Railroad came through northern Montana, through the Rockies, through Spokane. So the government gave these railroad companies all this land to build the railroad. Well, then in the 60s and 70s, they still had that land, 1960s and 70s. They spun it off into timber companies. So the railroad said, let's take all of our timberlands and form this thing called Plum Creek.
Gotcha.
Well, it was free access, just like you were talking about, until 5 years ago they sold to a group out of Georgia, a very large, I don't know if it's a publicly traded company or if it's a private equity firm, but now they're selling some of it, and less of it is open to hunting, and more of it's going to be this, what you guys have seen here, like, $500 a year, and you can only be there on the weekends and da-da-da. And so there's parts of Montana where that was the primary land that hunters use for access. And I don't live in that part of Montana, but I think about how that's going to impact those folks up there. And it's very unfortunate.
It almost seems like theft.
It's crazy because they got the land for free from the government back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Now it's not much we can do about that today because they've owned the land now for over 100 years. But for me, that's why I'm such a huge fan of helping raise money, raise awareness to buy access points, to buy that. Maybe there's a 100-acre piece that touches a bunch of public, and it'll get you access to 5,000 acres by only buying 100 acres. And so work with a lot of groups that do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a friend of ours had just bought a piece of land in Tennessee, East Tennessee. Was it like 20 acres, I think he paid, 70-some thousand for? And behind there is like 10,000 acres.
Yeah.
And you can't get to it unless you had that access or drove for like 3 hours around.
Right.
So it's like all these little access points are crucial.
Yeah.
I think from a standpoint, not being involved with things that you are like lawmakers and stuff like that, do you feel like there's an equitable position, since they talk about equities and all these things like social justice, to where they should bring that into the aspect of like, hey, we're taking financial people that don't have the same financial opportunities as other people, and we're limiting their ability to experience life as normal people normally do. Should that be considered, like, as far as just like, hey, this is our stance on what we can do with public land and whatnot?
Yeah, I think a case gets made for exactly that. Is, hey, there's a lot of people who these public lands are their only way, their only path, and I think that's a compelling case for why we need public lands. Because me, growing up after my parents divorced, using my example, if hunting would have cost $1 a day, my mom working as a waitress in a little diner, it would have broke her heart to have to tell me, sorry, Randy, I can't afford $1 a day. And now today it's way more expensive than the example I use of $1 a day. I think some of that stuff gets weighed into the equation, and it should. If we're gonna, I don't think it's by accident that the United States is a leader in terms of landscape conservation. There's no other country on the planet that has done as much conservation work as we have. I think it's because we do have a public, whether they're very wealthy or they're at the very bottom of the economic strata, they have a place to go and get connected to the land through these public lands. And if we lose that, if we somehow sever that for, the Randy Newbergs of the world when he was 12 years old, well, there's just that many more people that aren't going to become hunters or anglers or be concerned about clean air and clean water and productive landscape. So, yeah, I think the case has been made that that's a really important thing for the people who can't afford the other, other opportunities. And
Well, I was Randy Newberg too.
yeah,
My parents divorced when I was 10 years old, and it was a struggle just to play rec league football. You know, and that's once a year.
Yeah.
But it was, was I getting a T-shirt was the question.
Yeah.
So
no,
it's
and
legit.
so I tell people my story as I explain it. It's uniquely American because we have these public lands, but it's not unique in America. So exactly what you explained, David. How many people come from families where there's some turmoil when we're younger. And for me, another part of it was you're mentally and emotionally going through some big challenges in your life.
Yeah.
And a lot of things aren't making sense. It's like, man, this is a weird human world. And then you go out and you chase rabbits or grouse and everything kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that was your normal.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
your escape and your normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was the same way. My parents split up when I was very young, and my normal was going out camping.
Yeah.
So you take away that, like, where was my normal going to be?
Yep.
So, yeah, our public lands are very, very important. And speaking of that, where can people go to try to be a part of it or donate, or where are some avenues to reach out?
Every state has a lot of groups that are involved in this stuff. There's some national groups. I do a ton of elk hunting, so I'm a big fan of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. They do a ton of access stuff. But there's a lot of other groups out there, like here in Washington. I know with what's been going on recently with your game commission, you have a new group called the Outdoor Sportsmen's Alliance, I think is the new group.
I'm not familiar with them. But.
Okay, I think it was put together by one of your fishing groups and backcountry hunters and anglers and others. I would check into where that Outdoor Sportsmen's Alliance is at, because it's a group of organizations, and so they'll probably help keep you informed. There's just all kinds of hunting-based, conservation-based groups that are out there. I could ramble off all of them, but I'm always bashful about doing that because I feel like I'm giving favoritism to one or the other.
Cherry picking them.
But if you went, using the Google, you typed in hunter organizations or conservation organizations near me.
Yeah.
You'd get a bunch of them that come up. Some of them are just local rod and gun clubs.
That's a start.
30 people. And then some of them are regional, like maybe the Western Washington salmon anglers or something. And then you'll get some that are statewide or, national. So it really comes down to where people want to put their time into it. But the one thing that's very obvious, and you guys in Washington are an example of this with the craziness of your wildlife commission right now, is if you think that just getting on Facebook and complaining is going to change anything, well, that might make you feel better, but it's not changing anything. You need to get organized. You need to be part of a group, and you need to start taking action.
Yeah, Howl has been pretty big, and
Yeah.
they're doing stuff across the nation, even the world, really, because they advocate for some other stuff as well.
Yep.
But yeah, they put stuff in the forefront.
Yep.
I've been really paying attention to that and being a part of Howl, and yeah.
So I just say, do you. So if you're you're really into salmon fishing, do something that's about what you're into. If you're really into elk hunting like I am, do you. And
Awesome.
You'll do better at it, and you'll be more interested, and you'll give it your best shot. So
Well, we're running out of time for the room we're borrowing. This has been a pleasure talking with you. I'm sure we could go on for days.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll be here next year. So
You know what? We'll be here next year.
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it, and thanks for making Washington such a welcoming and inviting place.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
Of
before
course.
we go, what's that discount code you were saying?
Randy.
Just discount code Randy.
Yeah,
Awesome.
promo code Randy. Any place that I'm associated with, try it, and if it doesn't work, let me know.
All right, there we
I'll get
go.
hold of them. So
Awesome.
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That is it. Thank you, Randy. And, yep, tune in. Here we go.
Yeah, that was good.
Sorry, I got here a couple minutes late.
Oh, that was a whole communication breakdown. That was yeah. Because Trey was
at your booth, and Thomas, is that his name?
Yeah, Thomas.
yeah, Thomas. Yeah.
He's like, yeah. And Dustin came by and he's like, yeah, I think they're supposed to be doing a podcast with you.
All right. Well,
Well, thank you guys.
awesome. I appreciate it.